everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about my experience with tutoring and how you can get involved too. Welcome back everyone. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about my experience with tutoring and how you can get involved in tutoring too. So pretty much my whole life I have been exposed to tutoring because my mom is a high school and middle school math tutor, and so my whole life I grew up watching her tutor kids every weekday and every weekend in my house. Or sometimes I'd go with her to other kids' houses for tutoring and things like that. But I always knew that tutoring was something that I was going to do when I got older because I had seen my mom do it so many times. And so probably around 8th or 9th grade, I started doing some very basic tutoring here or there when a kid just needed a little bit of a review before an exam or anything like that. Just short little things that maybe my mom didn't have time for in my schedule, or in her schedule rather, or anything like that. I would just pick it up and do a quick tutoring session here or there. And I really loved it, and I still love it to this day. And so I went through tutoring like this, just kind of on and off whenever it became available throughout high school. And then when I got to college, I knew that this was something that I really wanted to take off and to really be a part of my collegiate experience, because eventually someday I'd like to become a professor. And so being able to have that one-on-one experience of explaining content and course content and difficult concepts and things like that to others is really important if you're going to eventually be any sort of professor or teacher or lecturer or anything like that. And so probably about halfway through my freshman year, first semester freshman year, I was just working on getting adjusted, but halfway through my second semester freshman year, I began tutoring just in very basic coursework, introduction to math, like algebra 2, trig, any very basic coursework that I had already taken and felt confident in. And I started tutoring just by tutoring some of my friends, or friends of friends, or people in my dorm and things like that. Just a very chill, on the side kind of deal. Then I just kind of kept going, and moving into my sophomore year, I downloaded this app called Knack. Now, Knack is not sponsoring today's video. I am not sponsored in any way by them. But essentially what Knack tutoring app is, I'll put in a little image of them over here, is a app where you upload your transcript and then approve which courses you would like to teach. And so essentially what Knack does is it certifies that all of its tutors got, I believe it's an A or an A+ in the courses that they are teaching. And so you still don't have to tutor in all the courses that you get an A or A+ in though. So I went ahead and selected, this many maths, this many sciences, engineering courses, introduction, to English literature, introduction to Spanish, coursework that I had kind of transfer credits from high school or I had taken my freshman year of college. And so I worked with that app, and through that I was able to build a really strong clientele base. I ended up getting tons and tons of tutoring jobs through that app, and it was an amazing experience because then all of these people who were using this tutoring app, Knack, could go on and give me a 5-star review after their session. And then because I was having these repeat clients who were coming 2 or 3 times a week with me, I ended up really quickly with a really great review and a really great profile built with tons of comments and captions and things saying like, oh, such a great tutor, loved my session with her, learned so much, and things like that. And so this app was really instrumental in getting me into the tutoring business at Alabama. Another thing that was really helpful was publishing on social media. So I made a couple Facebook posts with my Knack profile and things like that. It's called the Alabama Student Ticket Exchange, but it's anything not just tickets. And so it's just essentially a Facebook group with parents and students where everybody goes on and posts clothes or questions or football tickets, anything that they want. And so I went on with my NAC profile and posted a couple of just like classes that I tutor or sessions that I was having. So NAC also has this great ability to host group tutoring sessions. So for example, anytime I knew that a exam was coming up for one of the math classes that I was tutoring in, I would just set a group study session and then have 4 or 5 people who I may have never tutored before but were still using the app come to that study session just for an hour or so before their exam. And that ended up working out really well because then I had this extra clientele that anytime they had a question or they were uncertain about a topic they were covering, they would contact me for one-on-one tutoring and not just this group tutoring. And so step by step going through and using this app NAC really helped to build my clientele. Now, another thing that was absolutely huge in terms of building and fostering clientele as well is to make sure that you tell your clients that you're available to tutor in other coursework, 1, and 2, to tell their friends. The more that they go out and say, oh, hey, are you struggling in that class? I have a great tutor who can help. The more that your clients are aware that you don't just tutor algebra, you also tutor calculus, or you tutor geometry, or you tutor physics 1, or chemistry 1, or Spanish 1. You know, every time your client brings up a different class or a friend who's struggling in a class, throw it in there. Like, do a little self-advertising. That's what I've done, and it has worked wonders for me so far. I've actually ended up with almost an entire friend group who I tutor, and that has become so great for me because my younger brother is also at the University of Alabama. And so when I have overflow of people who I just can't accommodate into my weekly schedule, I'll pass those students off to my brother, similarly to how my mom passed her overflow students on to me. And so being able to pass those students on to my brother means that for the next 2 years that he's at Alabama after I graduate, he'll have another existing clientele base. And as their friend group grows, the longer that they are at the university, his clientele base will also grow. And so that is a really great way to get involved in tutoring and just expand your clientele base. Now, another thing to consider, which is something that I've had to consider a lot while tutoring, is that I really focus my efforts on introductory math courses and introductory physics courses. Now, I'm a physics major, and so I have all levels of physics coursework and all basic levels of math coursework: calculus, differential equations, linear algebra. But I choose to focus on the 100 level coursework. And the reason that I focus on those is because those are the most commonly taken courses at the university. Every major has to take at least one math course or come in with the credits, but the lower level coursework across any discipline, English, history, behavioral sciences, engineering, are always what's most frequently taken because they're the intro, they're the basic courses. And so I've kind of pushed aside that upper level coursework and said, I'm really going to focus on becoming a Calculus 1 tutor and an Algebra 2 tutor and a Physics 1 tutor. And narrowing myself to those courses helps to spread my name around that discipline. Because if I tutor 7 kids that are all in the same class, it's much more likely that I'll get more people from that same class rather than tutoring 1 in Calc 1, 1 in Spanish 1, 1 in English 1, because then that's just one person to spread my name rather than 7. And so I've worked this out to kind of be this positive reinforcement cycle of, I tutor someone, they do great on a test, somebody that's struggling in that class sees that they did great on that test, asks them for help, and then they come and recommend me to their friend who was struggling in that class in general. And so that's what's worked really, really well for me. Now, some other ideas that I've seen on campus that I have had friends that have been super successful with are, of course, like I said, posting on social media. So many people have separate tutoring accounts, which is great if you're really trying to make this like a business. I do it for just like some spending money here and there, but if you're trying to make this a business, that is absolutely the way to go. Make a social media account, post success stories with people's permission, of course, and do really lots of promotional work. If your university has any sort of Facebook group, or you're a TA for a class for one semester, at the end of that semester, really make yourself known and say, hey, I also tutor this class and these other classes, and really just advertise yourself. Another thing that a lot of people have done and works well for them are those flyers with like tear off tabs with your name and phone number on the bottom. Now, the only problem that I've seen with this, which is just something to consider, is that sometimes people don't want to be seen taking a tutoring flyer off the wall. It just makes them self-conscious. Now, that being said, it's 10 cents to print a piece of paper at a university. So if you're willing to spare $1 to put 10 flyers up around the math building just to get your name out there, and if only one person takes it, that's $1 well spent for that one client. Another thing is to really consider the price range that you are willing to offer to get that maximum return. You don't want to offer $5 an hour because your hour is worth more than $5. You also don't want to offer $500 an hour because no college student is going to pay for that. But that being said, it also depends on what service you're offering. If you're doing MCAT or GRE or GMAT tutoring, these graduate school, medical school, dental school, etc. entrance exams, those are going to be worth a little bit more than just Intro to Calculus. Intro to Calculus is going to be worth a little bit more than algebra. And that's just because you have more information about those topics. You need more and more practice on them. And so, you know, it's the same thing as if you go into the workforce with a bachelor's degree versus a master's degree. If that master's degree is really pertinent, typically you'll have a higher starting salary than just having a bachelor's degree. And so it's a similar thing while tutoring. Algebra, maybe you charge $20 an hour to start. That's a pretty reasonable amount on a college campus. Most kids can cough up $20 an hour or have their parents help out if they need. For extenuating circumstances, you can always make an exception if you feel like you need to. But maybe for calculus or a physics course or an upper level English or history course, you know, maybe you want to offer $25 or $30 an hour. And that works out really well, because then as you continue to build that clientele in those upper level courses, you're getting a little bit more money for your time. And then finally, the last thing to consider when kind of starting your own tutoring business and getting involved in tutoring is group sessions. So group sessions are great. They help you to spend less time and get more money for it. However, you also need to realize that for the person you're tutoring, this is no longer a one-on-one tutoring session. So if you have a group tutoring session with yourself and 5 clients, you can't expect $20 an hour if that's your one-on-one rate. So, but you also don't want them to each pay $4 an hour because there are 5 of them. So you're a little bit more hectic. You are doing more work with 5 people, but maybe figure out some sort of formula for yourself. Like for the first person, it's my base rate, and then for every additional person, it's 50% of my base rate. So, you know, for 5 people, you have $20 and 4 $10, so $60 total. Then you split that evenly amongst the 5 people, so each person gets costs $12 total for the hour. Or you can figure out some other way to do it for yourself. I know plenty of people who do like, oh, $20 for the first person, 15, 10, 5, and then 5 for every additional person. It's just a little formula that you'll help figure out, and you'll figure out over time that'll help your clients know how much money they can be expected to pay for group tutoring versus one-on-one tutoring. And some people don't need a full one-on-one hour, so group tutoring is another great way to just set up someone with a problem, go help someone else while that person works it out, come back, check their answer, and then keep moving. That way you're not just have this like gray space time where you're just sitting there watching them write numbers down on a piece of paper. Now, a couple other tips and tricks to be a successful tutor, business aside, just being a great tutor. One is, don't do the work for them. Sometimes students do need to see a problem worked out in front of them, but do something like change the numbers, or if there's only one number set given, do that problem for them, but then have them do the next one. And when I say do that for them, I mean go very slowly, step by step, explaining each step, asking questions every step of the way. Does that make sense? Do you understand what happened? Okay, moving on. And that's really important. That'll help set your student up for success by watching a problem be done. The next thing to do is, don't be a tutor if you're really, really frustrated, or work on your patience while tutoring. It's very important that while students are struggling, you don't get frustrated that they're struggling. They're paying you to help them. So make sure you're very understanding and say, oh, well, that's really close, or not quite, or let's try a different method. This method seems to be confusing for you. You don't want to be like, oh, we just did this. That'll make the student really frustrated, and honestly, when you're frustrated or stressed out, you don't perform your best anyways, and so this is gonna just be a really negative spiral downward. Now, the last thing to consider is, don't tutor in a subject that you're not 100% confident in. It's really, really important that you know this material in and out. Now, that's not to say that if you get a question wrong every once in a while because you did some mental math wrong, or you added 7 when you should have subtracted 7, that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes, and your client should understand that as well. But if you need to check every solution to every question, that's not a good sign that you're in the right tutoring, you're tutoring the right class. You really need to make sure that you're tutoring something that you are confident in and really, really, really know your stuff in, because you're trying to impart your knowledge on someone else. If you don't even have that knowledge, there's no way it's going to get to that other person. So those are kind of my tips and tricks for starting a tutoring business and how to be a great tutor, as well as a little bit about my story and my background. As always, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe and thumbs up this video if you're thinking of starting a tutoring business, you are already a tutor, you think you'd be a great tutor, or if you just like the contents of this video. I'll also put in the description bar below a sign up for the NAC app to kind of get your tutoring business started. So thanks everyone for watching. I'm so glad you tuned in. I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.